Hi, this is Alex from PHP Academy, and this is a CSS tutorial on headers. Now, in this tutorial, we're going to take a look at implementing headers, what they're for, where we place them in our markup, and we're also going to take a look at obviously styling them. The CSS part is the most important in this series, rather than where they go. So we're going to create an overall sort of document outline. We're going to create a couple of headers and some paragraphs of text, and then we're going to start targeting these headers and styling them up. So in CSS, we generally run headers through from, in HTML, CSS, whatever, we generally run headers through from header 1 to header 5, although you're very unlikely to use 1 to 5. So for example, we have an overall page and we want a header. Okay, this might be an article, it might be a page where you're listing information, blah blah blah. So in this case, I'm going to say contact us. Okay, so it might be an overall document of contacting us. When I refresh, you can see that we get this header here. Doesn't look too nice because we've got a massive margin at the top. If we go ahead and inspect this element, we've got a big margin at the top. That's in that orangey yellow color. We've got the margin at the bottom, which is fine. We most likely need a margin at the bottom. However, we want to go ahead now and we want to create sort of subsections of this page. So we could use an H2 here, and we could say by telephone. And then we could say an H2 here, and we could say by email. So by telephone, we might say, create a paragraph in here, call us on 12345678990. And by email, we could create a paragraph in here and say, drop us an email on hello@phpacademy.org. Okay, so we've got our document outline. Let's just space this out a bit so it looks a bit neater, and let's go ahead and refresh the page. Now what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be styling this up now, and we'll look at some default styles and how we can change these. So you'll already notice that a H2 has been automatically decreased in font size. So if we inspect our H1, we've got a font size of 2 EM there, or M's. If we inspect our by telephone header, you can see we've got a font size of 1.5, and the same with the other H2, which obviously takes the same default style because it's an H2 as well. So the first thing I want to go ahead and do is I want to get rid of this horrible margin at the top of the H1 and the H2 as well. We've got a horrible margin at the top as well. So we're going to go over to our primary CSS file, which we've got linked to our page, and we're going to target both the H1 and the H2. So it would always probably be a good idea if you knew you were using an H1 tag, an H2 tag, and even an H3 tag, you might want to target them all. And I've done that by targeting H1, H2, and H3, and that's it. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to set the margin top to 0. Okay, no pixels required because we've got a 0 measurement. And what that's going to do is that's just going to get rid of the margin on all of them. So it basically shifts everything up, and it doesn't look too bad. So when I inspect these, you can see that we've only now got the orangey padding, highlight and chrome on the bottom, and the same with the H1 as well. So everything's looking a bit nicer. Okay, so now we've sorted out the padding, let's go ahead and start to change a few other things about this. We're not going to change the font size, we're going to keep that as the default font size, but we're going to sort of change some other things as well. Now, one of the things I currently don't like about these headers is the fact that they're in bold. Okay, so I'm going to change the fact that they're bold. So I'm going to say font weight normal. Now with font weight, we've got a few options. We've got font weight, sort of bold, anything else, but I'm going to say font weight normal. So when I say font weight normal, I mean don't make it bold. So that's changed that. Now I might want to go ahead and change the letter spacing. So this is another example of a style that you could apply to a header to make it look a bit nicer. So I'm going to say letter spacing 1 pixel. Now we can see how this is going to change the letter spacing. It's going to sort of pad it out just very slightly. Okay, so we've padded out the letters slightly, so it looks a bit, slightly nicer. Now, what else can I do to a header? Well, I could underline it, I could change the color of it. I'm not going to change the color, I'm not going to underline it. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to use a text transform. transform. Now what we can do with this is we can actually set the text to uppercase. Now it's semantically incorrect to use capitals in markup. So if I was doing this for every header, contact us, it would actually be, you know, semantically incorrect. We'd use a capital C for the first letter of a sentence or a heading, and the rest would be lowercase as you'd expect. So just like you'd write normally, you wouldn't write in all uppercase. What we do is we use CSS to actually target this. So it also makes it easier, because if we're then adding headings in the future, we don't need to worry about putting them in uppercase. We can let CSS do that for us. So I've now created a heading which has all uppercase characters in it. So, you know, there's not really much left to do here. This is just a general tutorial on styling a header, you know, from the default style sheet. So now I might want to go ahead and change the color, for example. So I might want to change this to 999, which is just going to set it to a sort of gray color, makes it a bit lighter. Really, it's up to you, but what the most important thing about this is that we've targeted all of these elements, and we've, you know, kept the, you know, the staggering font size that slowly degrades as you go. We might say, for example, by email, and we might then say H3 business email, and then we might, say personal email. So we might come down here and say personal email, and then create another paragraph with, you know, a personal email address in here. And then when we refresh, what's happened is we've kept, you know, the same styles as we sort of cascade down. So we've got, you know, contact us, that's relatively, you know, straightforward. And then by telephone, okay, so the information's under there. By email, but then it staggers down again using the default font size for the browser style sheet, which is, let's click on here and go down here, which is 1.17 EM. So you might want to change that, you might want to keep it the same. And then again we have an H3 element, so we're sort of, you know, gracefully coming down the page. Now again, if you wanted to go ahead and say target different things, so I might just want to say, oh well, actually I want my overall header to be underlined, you can go ahead and do that. You know, you're cascading down. Here we're not setting any underline or anything like that, it's not underlined by default, but here we might want to say text decoration underline. So it's still going to carry the same properties of these, but it's actually just going to then only underline the header 1. So we've got an overall header here. So, you know, with a little CSS and targeting our elements carefully and carefully placing them on our page, we've actually created, you know, a nice effect that comes down. It doesn't look great, but, you know, we can go ahead and we could probably do with changing the overall font of our body. So we could say body font family Verdana, and then sans serif as our backup. In fact, we'll just say font 0.8 EM Verdana, and then you can see that that's changed the entire fonts of everything. So, you know, doesn't look great, but what we've done is we've created something that keeps in with the styles, but we've just targeted everything quite carefully here. So that's it. I won't go on any more about headers, but that's something about, you know, just about headers, where to place them, how to style them, and actually it's relatively straightforward. So that's it.